If you have seen some of my videos out there on different websites, I'm actually the guy that does a lot of the research and reviews for a whole host of different wellness equipment, medical devices, different sorts of health technologies. And so, what excites me that I'm bringing you today is a new version of an older technology, which is called the AOScan Mobile. And what do I mean by new but old? What I mean is the company Energy Development has had one of the premier, what I think has been maybe the most effective, the best bioresonance, bioenergetic, it's different terms for it, equipment on the market. And this is a technology that came out of Russia, during the space program. And it was a very, very unique research project that not a lot of people know about. And I'll go into that in a second. But that system is now available on mobile devices, tablet that the company sells specifically designed for running this program. And the same goes for the mobile type phone-like device, which is military grade industrial. So this original technology was at a much higher price point of around like 36 to 45, depending on the package you got. And that's thousands, 36 to 45,000, more or less. The current mobile version is now the company's intentions essentially were to bring this incredible healing technology to the masses. And so the mobile version is $475, and then you pay a monthly subscription of $149 up to $199 for the pro level. So obviously that's quite a big difference to be able to take all these amazing features and programs you'll see in a second. And it really is quite empowering. The goal is to make a complete health revolution by really releasing this. They really are kind of the first company to do this. Some of these technologies out there, that I'll dive into in a second, are usually come at a much higher price point, which is again out of the range of your average sort of consumer, and even a lot of practitioners. So on the screen you can see here, by the way, this is just the store page of the actual company website and the product, and what you're looking at is the mobile version and the tablets. So again, this technology is something out of Russia. It took me many, many years to research this field of being able to bioenergetically scan somebody or analyze somebody, and to be able to actually pull enough data and accurately. And then the other side of that is doing the therapeutic programs. Once you've pulled that data, it's taken me a while to really compare all the different technologies out there, because you actually have to go back to who created it, try to get your hands, if you can, on the research or learn more on that level. And that's not always so easy to do. You also have to track with a lot of practitioners who have used these various sorts of technologies. For example, Cyberscan or the Indigo or the Life Computer, Energetics, Skio, QXCI, the NES Health, the Bicom out of Germany. Okay, these are all these different technologies, and there's a couple more of them leaving out. They seem similar initially when you look into them, but it's really quite difficult to actually, it just takes time, because you actually have to have firsthand experience using it, testing it. Is it accurate? If you cross-reference it with other tests, how does it compare? And then cross-referencing all this equipment together. So it was actually one of the more difficult product categories for me to actually look into, compared to something like infrared saunas, for example, which is fairly straightforward, although let me tell you, most people are quite confused to actually try to figure this out, including practitioners. So yeah, this technology, anything when you get into the energy medicine space, of which there's all kinds of things that I've looked into, it's a little more difficult, because you also have to know a little bit about the science as well, to be able to basically discern the information, the claims that companies make about how it works or what it's capable of. So most people, yeah, they just are not up and up on science in general, physics to be particular, and biophysics. We were not taught that in high school. So let's roll into this technology a little bit more so. Now, for this video, I actually am going to share my screen with a really cool technology called AirDroid. AirDroid, if you have Android or PC, allows you to actually show on your screen what is on your phone. You can also remote access your device, your computer. You can do all kinds of fun stuff. So if anybody was wondering, by the way, and they want to do like presentations, and this is helpful, or accessing their home computer when they're away. So on the screen here, you'll see this is the actual military grade device, mobile device. I say military grade because they designed something at the factory to be indestructible, basically. I'm sure if you took a hammer to the screen really hard several times, it would break. But outside of that, it's pretty. I mean, you could drop it out of a plane, land in the ocean. I mean, whatever, and it would still work. So they've given a lot of value on the front end, even with the hardware itself. So the front end screen here, this is actually, you're looking at the basic package. Okay, so there's basic, there's a mid-level, and there's a pro level. And we'll just kind of run through this. So behind all these programs that you see here, there's a type of voice analysis. There's a vitals diagnostic scan, which goes through all these different aspects here of the body. Okay, let's back out a second. The comprehensive scan, you're looking in detail on all the different tiny little parts of all these different aspects. Okay, so this is not something where you're like looking at your digestive system and says, oh, well, your digestive needs to be improved and, it's not looking so good. And believe me, a lot of systems that seem sophisticated will just give you very basic info about your digestion and all the digestive organs. So you still kind of have to do more tests and deeper digging. This does the deeper digging like nothing else. Then you'll see in a second. Anyways, these are all the different organ systems. Okay, back out again. Little Cepheid here that I just clicked on at the bottom stands for subtle energy frequency imprinter. We get into a lot of different sorts of radio, infrasound, radionic scalar, electromagnetic sorts of functions. I know I said a mouthful there. So right off the bat, you should be impressed by that. It's really kind of the merger of a lot of different energy medicine modalities rolled into one. So these are the functions. We'll go into that in a second. Just wanted to kind of give you a quick glance of things. So behind all these programs, what you're seeing on the front end here is Energy Development in Utah, and this was maybe used about 20 years ago. They worked with the Russian team that was in the 80s. Were basically pouring in a ton of money for the time, especially to basically do all kinds of different diagnostics on people. And that could be all the types of things you can pull from urine, which is a lot, especially in Russia, where they've actually had some pretty advanced developments in medicine compared to the United States, in my personal opinion. So they were doing all kinds of stuff for urine, blood, hair, tissues, exploratory surgery, working with cadavers, doing all kinds of other non-invasive scans. And the goal was, if we found these 50 parameters in blood, for example, can we energetically, so through energetic means, actually scan the blood while it's still in the body and actually pull up the same parameters and near the same accuracy, could even go beyond the accuracy, right? So that's one point I just want to bring up, and I have a little slide somewhere, but we'll save that for another time, is when you look at MRIs and CAT scans and blood tests and all these different things, you'd be surprised. It's never 100% accuracy, okay? Even though the medicine world and practitioner world wants to kind of instill that confidence in you, it's actually much lower than you would think. We could be anywhere from 30, 40% for a lot of mainstream stuff. Blood can be 60s. And remember, part of the issue with whenever you're pulling things from the body, so let's say urine, blood, even hair, fecal analysis, things like that, is once it gets outside the body, things change energetically. And there's many different things that can influence that, especially the longer that has been done. And I will just share with you, for example, a lot of all the study and findings on blood historically, for example, in the medical industry, are using dried blood, okay? Or blood that has been, again, aged for a long period of time. It's not always the case, but this brings into the subject also why some would make a case for live blood cell analysis, things like that. Well, one step better is actually being able to scan things in the body, because things work together. They're constantly influenced by different waveforms in the brain, the heart, the digestive tract, the immune system as a whole. It's like could you remove somebody from an orchestra seat, just pull them right out of there and have them continue to perform the concert? Probably not, because there's no conductor. So, can you then make a lot of judgment on the orchestra and the symphony based on that one musician after you've removed them from the situation? Yes and no, right? We don't really have to go into that analogy any further. So that was their goal with Russia, was basically to do these analyses and to be able to draw parallels with these non-invasive tests. And so I will say today, and we're very proud of this fact, that on average, AOScan diagnostic tests are going to be somewhere around 80 to 85% accurate. Okay. And you would almost say that if something pops up that seems off, just keep in mind that, and we won't get too fully into the science here, that there are things going on in the body that can be projecting a signal of information that could have happened 5-10 years ago. Okay, so it's digging up information that can be factors that are still influencing you, but from way in the past. It's just very, very sensitive, is my point. Okay, so if you ever see anything, it's like, that's kind of mysterious. That didn't show up, over here in this test, and it didn't show up over here. That doesn't always mean that, it's inaccurate. Actually, it means that there is something affecting you that perhaps these other tests are not picking up on because they're not quite as sensitive, if that makes sense. So let me get back to the research study, and then we'll dive right into the device, I promise here. I just want to squeeze a lot in here really quickly for a short video. So behind these programs, what's actually behind this? This is front-end software, if you will, built by Energy Development over in Utah. And the front-end software is something they didn't have the luxury of in the early 80s, of course. And I'm sure some of you are alive then, before the advent of computers, right? So what they ended up with was a database of somewhere around like 140-something frequencies. I'm sorry, like 100, around more like 120,000 or so. And so that was a massive database that was pulled from essentially what were like these vibrational equivalents for different structures in the body, or different toxins, or whatever it is, different parameters or values that were coming up on other tests that they were doing. And so that database, just because you had that database, what would you then do with it, right? You would then, the key was to have a practitioner or an individual become empowered, being able to scan and look at the body and be able to cross-analyze and determine more the root causal factors and how they were relevant to one another, and how all the scans and all the information would have cross relevances. So really, for that database to leverage the full capabilities of all those frequencies, you needed kind of like a front-end software to really pull it off successfully. So that is exactly what Energy works and continues to work to this day on developing and fine-tuning. Energy also, just so you know, obviously things have changed since the 80s, right? And even 90s. We continue to have better diagnostic sorts of tests and scans and technologies. So Energy throughout this has also circled back and continued to review and test the frequency databases for accuracy, seeing if they can improve anything, seeing if, you get the point. In other words, is kind of leveraging what we have today and continuing to improve upon what they had even created back then, which was really a lot of breakthroughs, in my opinion. So behind these programs, once again, front-end interface for a deep analysis of a lot of different frequencies that they'll actually be reading in the body. And so I have some documents. So if anybody leaves a question below in the comments of this video, or you find me on my website, you drop me a question, okay? Or you drop me a phone call with the direct phone number below in the description, okay, of the video. I can send you a lot more materials that will be more educational on the science of this. It's a lot to grasp, okay, for your average person, but we're working very hard to try to make this as understandable in layman's terms as possible, because it is quite advanced. So again, we're getting more into the magnetic domains, this magnetic ether, infrasound, even beyond acoustic sound domains. and that is how it's doing a deeper analysis. Most other devices out there that may seem similar, they're doing more like an electrodermal, electrical microcurrent sort of testing, and there's a lot of challenges with that form, just so you know. Okay, they can give back a lot of false positives. It's like lie detector tests. There's many things that can influence it negatively and interfere. Electrosmog, your mood, how much you're sweating, if you're crossing your legs, all kinds of different factors. Okay, so inner voice. What is this about? Let's try that. So in here, you'll actually just speak for 10 seconds and you'll just keep talking. And a person can do this also over a speakerphone remotely. And we have, over the years, tested it to be just as accurate, whether we're doing remote voice capture or in person. Okay. Somebody can even record their voice and send it to you. We always feel like live capture is always better. So like if you called a person with this device and you called their cell phone, for example, we're finding it to be the most accurate to do that. And that, just to even break that down of why that's the case is beyond the scope of this video a little bit. Okay, because we have to get into physics and all kinds of stuff. But basically now you see an analysis. So I would just make a couple commentaries with on voice analysis. Number one, this is the basic package, okay? So even that sort of color screen you saw right here, you see that? This will provide even way more data on this with the pro version that'll be out towards the end of this month of September, at the latest first week in October. So again, this is the basic that comes for $149 a month. But there's way more that we can dive into here with this technology, with the voice analysis, just so you know. Okay. But basically, it was found that it took a while, but they could make cross correlations between the status of the health of different organ systems, stress factors. Maybe if you had a lot of guilt you were carrying, they would find a lot of commonalities in how that would affect the language processing, the vocal cords, the vagus system. There's a lot to even break down about language, speaking, communication, stress, emotions, how all that is interwoven with the autonomic nervous system, controlling all kinds of different things. So you can actually read a lot in the voice. I will say this though, just because you see voice analysis in a technology out there doesn't mean it is this voice analysis. So this is first off how confusing it is. So you could see something that sounds similar, like quantum biofeedback, and whatever it is, some bioresonance thing out there, and has a voice analysis. Again, doesn't mean that it is the same thing that AO is actually offering. And that's a lot to unpack right there. But our analysis is not just on the voice level. Okay, that's the first clue. Okay, we're doing more than that. Okay, we're going beyond even the electrical domain. Okay, we're going into actually the sound pulses that are actually going through the nervous system, and we're going beyond that as well. We're exploring more the magnetic field of the body versus more the electrical current, which is what most do. So we're factoring in other ways of reading the body is what I'm saying, and then we're able to cross-reference that algorithmically with the voice portion, and the reason for doing that is to get higher accuracy. Okay, so right here you can see that the note that is being most affected octave-wise, and again you can break that down further in the pro level, is G, the note of G. Okay. And then we can scroll down, we can say what physical areas are being affected. That's a cross-reference with some of our other scans or technologies of this algorithms, I should say, and databases, and then we're cross-referencing it with the voice. If you want to see more of that cross-reference, you can't like open up all the databases and do that in the basic version. And to get some healing and some insight, you don't necessarily have to. I'm just letting you know that for those who really want to dive into more detail, it can be done, okay, with the Pro. That's all I'm saying. So as we scroll down, it brings in the emotional domains, which is helpful, especially if because most people, they like to believe that physiologically that's the only thing they got to think about, but really actually the mind and the emotions have a great effect. They're all interconnected. So this is a good technology for helping people to realize that and track that, or track other modalities they're doing for their mind or their emotions. And it talks about the balancing octave as well. you have to be able to take in the full spectrum, the full harmonics, okay, of the body. And again, not just with sound, infrasound, and then electromagnetic. And then we can basically make an assessment like for what's being affected on this portion, and there's more analysis over here. For this particular topic, this theme, these organs, this is what you got to work on. The balancing color is there's always a connection between frequencies and also the color spectrum and chromotherapy. So we sell medical grade chromotherapy glasses. The person would use, for example, red, orange. I would wear those for 15 minutes today, and then I would track my progress, my results. Okay, just as an example. And it gives you some other things to look at there. All right, so for those who haven't had good experiences with voice analysis in the past with technologies, there's many reasons for that, and I won't get into it on this video. But I totally agree with potentially your experiences about it not being helpful or accurate. That definitely can happen with other things that are out there. Okay. And then we'll close this back here. These reports can be emailed very easily right here with the little email button. Okay. And then the little rad tones here, I don't know if you can hear that music. So it's playing the missing notes, okay, with music in front of it. So it's actually the sound frequency healing, and you actually use bone conductive headphones. So bone conductive headphones, and you can see those right on the store page. Bone conductive have little oscillator coils, and you actually position those over your trigeminal nerve on both sides of your head when you're doing an analysis or you're doing therapy. And that's able to actually do not acoustic, but actually to be able to transmit both a vibroacoustic, but also the oscillation inducing a magnetic effect, both receiving and transmitting to the cranial nerves, going into the brain, the vagus system, central nervous system. So that's a fascinating way that's quite unique. No other technology does that. And we use that to get a more accurate analysis and a more effective, efficient therapeutic response. But it is not, what's interesting, it is not 100% required. We've found there to be just about as much accuracy and therapeutic efficacy without them. And that we could break down in another video. So we've already done a scan on these areas here. So I'm just going to show you my reports now of the vital scan. Try to turn my phone sideways here just to see if that would work on the screen. It does not. That's okay. I would almost say it's coming through a little blurry for some reason. It could be my. It's kind of fascinating why that's happening. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's okay because I can still talk you through it. And if anybody's curious to get one of these reports emailed to them, I can do that as well. Okay, so you can just reach out to me. So usually you have things broken down here on this report by out of range in this column, and if these values, these parameters in the body are in range, you see that over here. Over here it says previous scan. Over here it says current scan. Previous scan is exactly what it sounds like. It was my previous scan, and yeah, and it just goes into the changes that happened. Okay, so I ran a therapeutic program today. I optimized some of the frequencies in my body. So that's why some of these red values here actually changed to green. Okay, so we would just hope to see some positive shifts. My body was quite responsive over here, which is good. So we got digestive acids, we got macronutrients, we got the pancreas. We go deep into the pancreas, all different aspects of it. A lot of deep aspects on the digestive system. This is all blood. And I have a description also of all of these little aspects. So if you don't have like a health background or a medical background and you're confused, just keep in mind that we do have an explanation for all these aspects. Here's your B vitamins, other vitamins, basic physical hydration, glutathione, mental clarity, pH balance, vagal tone. There's really just all kinds of stuff. Deep analysis of the bones. If you're a practitioner, you can already start to see, just even on bones, so many people have bone density issues. You can track a lot of things with this and also leverage this to sell products, cardiovascular function. You get the point anyways. These are all tests. Just even cardio, to get some of this cardio info, you have to send people in for extensive cardio testing. And honestly, some of those tests, they can't even get. Like, they have to do exploratory surgery to get some of this information, to be honest. And that is how they actually arrived at both cadavers and exploratory surgeries to arrive at some of this info. The way in general they went about the research to get these values, I can just tell you, no other companies really have done that in terms of non-invasive diagnostic sorts of tests bioenergetically. So again, then what does that mean? That means that, again, this technology is very accurate, okay, and more thorough compared to every other system. And I've looked at them all. You can go through the expense and the time to do that, which is what I've done over years. And I've known people that have spent $200,000, okay, to get many of these systems, or more, 250, 300,000 firsthand to compare them. Because when you call up some of these companies, they're not always going to tell you, like, oh, how does this compare against Bicom, or how does it compare against a Skio? Like, they don't get into that for many reasons if you speak directly to somebody at these companies. So you're kind of on your own. Anyways, you get the point. You can just keep on going on and going on here. And also, if you send away these reports, even if you read the description of what all those values mean, and you're still like, well, I still don't know quite what to make of this, you can just email the report, not just to yourself or your client, but we have a third-party clinic you can send the data, all that data to, and for a pretty reasonable fee, they print out a full report. So it kind of, like, in layman's terms, a full summary of explaining everything, which is fantastic. It's a great report, very reasonable. Somebody really only needs to do that once a month. It just depends on what they have going on. And the other thing too is that after you get that first report or second, you will learn so much about how to look at the report. In and of itself, it's a training. Not to mention, we actually offer training. So nobody's on their own. I don't know what I'm doing. Help. We definitely will have video training on all these different areas. So again, don't worry about any of this stuff. We can show you exactly how to apply it to yourself, apply it to a family, friend, or your client, your customer, etc. Here's the comprehensive. We've seen this, right? All this. Now, this is really impressive. When people see this, they're pretty blown away. And the reason is because they've never seen anything like it, honestly. So it just doesn't really exist out there. By the way, normally this loads up a lot faster. I'm just running a lot of applications right now. So if you had your own device, this would have loaded in like 2 seconds. So I just have a lot of things. I'm sharing my screen right now with this AirDroid. That really slows it down. Anyway, so let's move here. So right off the bat, you're like, oh my God, look at all this stuff. The function, by the way, since you can only see a portion of the screen at a time, within a week, you'll be able to just zoom in or zoom out and look at the whole thing at once, okay? Or if you have the tablet, which has a bigger screen, or if you email yourself for your computer, you can look at this on a bigger screen. So just letting you know, this will be different. If you ever get a device yourself, you'll be able to see this more clearly. So what am I looking at here? This is an analysis on my head, specifically on my arteries, okay? Look at all these little arteries that this is looking at. Just on page 1 of 34, what you're looking at doesn't exist anywhere else. Nowhere, okay? And some of this info you can't get. You just can't get it. You'd have to crack open somebody's head to look at it. Again, that's exploratory surgery. Now, here's the thing. For years, I've tracked people looking at something like this. I had 2 cases last week of people with aneurysms, with what was the other condition too? A blood clot, different conditions. And it pulled up the value. It found exactly where it was, exactly where it had come up on some other diagnostic scans with the doctor at the hospital. So you can get some info, by the way, with like sensitive MRIs and things like that. It's just not quite as thorough in the analysis. But basically, the thing that I like about this technology is it gives a lot of health info that if you just share it with the person, they're going to be pretty spooked out because they're going to say, how the hell did it know that? How did it know that I had something there? In other words, most people have enough of a sense of what's going on with their health so that they basically will, have something that stands out to them and they'll say, oh my gosh, wow, that is spot on. How did it know that? So even if they don't understand the science, that's okay. They just have to roll with it, see the results, and the results kind of speak for themselves. Here's something for the spine, looking at just the ligaments in particular, which is really helpful. And I'm going to actually break this down now for a second here. What are you actually looking at? Okay, so if we're looking at the spine, you see these numbers here. So there's two numbers, there's two sets. So the set that is in the little boxes, those numbers in the boxes, that is actually the most recent scan after I did one of the therapy sessions, after I optimized the frequencies. Okay? The number to the left is the analysis that was done before I did the therapeutic programs. So it's kind of like a before and after. And we would hope to see that for most of the values, there's a change from less ideal to more ideal. Now, all these values here, see the percentage down there in the bottom of the screen? It also averages it together. So at a quick glance, we mainly, if we're just kind of doing like a quick glance at everything, see how we're doing, we can just look at the bottom numbers and say, oh, I'm just 25% away from ideal. As you head towards 0%, you're getting close to perfect, to perfectly healthy. Now, my previous was 38%, so that's a pretty good jump. That's a pretty significant shift in how my body was functioning. So right off the bat, if you're a practitioner, and there's more you can get into with the spine, like chiropractors love this, and you can go into way more detail than this, nerves and all the muscles and just everything. This is info that they can pull in like 1 minute, and it's actually better than some of the other tools that chiropractors are already using. Okay. And then we also have ultrasound attachments and infrared thermal camera attachments. So for all this different data, you can actually look in all the heat signatures in the body, cross-reference it. You can look at ultrasound, actually see the tissues. You can see your heart in real time, all the tissues around it. So you can actually cross-reference those two attachments as well. Those two attachments, the ultrasound, the infrared thermal camera, those are coming in December, just so you know, okay? And you'll be able to even take a more of a deeper dive, be able to track other modalities that you're doing and see, is this really doing something in my leg right now? What is it doing exactly? And how am I doing, from therapy session to therapy session? And by the way, that type of data, generally looking and tracking that type of data is usually the only time you kind of see that level of detail is in case studies, but usually more expensive research studies. So what I'm telling you is this is putting research study level, multi-million-dollar study costs in the hands of anybody to be able to do this level of information. This is my lymphatic system. Okay. Lymphatic system is so crucial. So now I'm going to explain the values here. So it goes from a 1 to 9, okay, of values. The outliers 1 and 9 are in red. Those are the least ideal. The yellows, which are like the 8 and the 2, those are, not that great either. They're pretty close to outliers. What we're mainly looking for is the greens and blues, 4, 5, 6, somewhere more towards the center. We're looking for equilibrium. Okay, so whether it's high or low, doesn't matter as much if it's like a 9 versus a 1. You know what I mean? We're just actually we're looking for the state of balance optimization. So this is actually a range. So these numbers are not like random numbers. How about 1 through 9? Let's just go with that. They didn't just randomly pick that. The 1 through 9 is kind of representative of actually a wide range of frequencies, audible, inaudible, analog. And that's, again, more science of basically like if we were looking at your liver. Let's see if we can just pull up liver just for fun here, okay? Because I'm just going to give you a brief. That's your adrenal, by the way. That's your blood. It's looking for my liver. There's so many things to go into. Because I'm going into liver because, my gosh, everybody's liver usually needs a lot of help. And it does so much work for the body. So all these different little structures and different functions, they might have their own specific frequency range of what would be considered optimal function. Actually, my liver's improved a lot. This is a good sign here from last time I did my scan. So that's really good. So if we were looking at, for example, the bile duct, I actually had a great improvement. I'm really excited about this just in the last week or two with some new protocols that I've been doing. And not just the AO Scan mobile, but I've actually been doing other therapeutic protocols. And I'm really excited to see this value. So I'm just giving you an insight right now. For example, I've seen that I can track other things that I'm doing and seeing if it's working or not. How many of you, or for your clients, or just for yourself or your family, you're taking or you're doing so many things and you're just like, well, it's a good product, based on my research, but is it the best thing for me, or is it really doing for me what I need right now? How do I prioritize? Like, most people spend so much money and time, believe me, because I coach and I consult with people. I've done it for 15 years. They're kind of flying blind, and a lot of practitioners are as well. They could fine tune their protocol so much more by having better tracking. But easier said than done. There's not that many great ways. There's a few, but not many to actually track things. And sending away for lab tests has its drawbacks, to not get into it, okay? So I've seen some good changes here. And what I was saying before is when they looked at the liver, there's like a whole range of frequencies and harmonics, and there's other types of energetic analysis you can do, and they're basically then correlating each of those functions or organ or structures with a value, okay, in between 1 to 9. So it's kind of more a representative, quick glance, easy to understand reference. They could give you more frequency-based info, but then it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to you. So I'm just giving you an insight of like kind of what energy development did. They built a front end so that when you're looking at all the raw data, you can make some sense out of it. So there was a lot of work that needed to be done on the front end to take all that raw data from Russia and, again, put it into a form like you're seeing here. So yeah, seeing some good things here. So yeah, the liver has its own unique vibrational informational signals that it's sending, different than the lungs, totally different. Actually, we're seeing some good improvements here too. That's exciting. I was doing some protocols for my lungs as well. If you're freaked out about the C virus, I'm not even going to say the name because, believe it or not, YouTube will pull the transcript and I could potentially jeopardize my channel. I know it's crazy, but that's actually happening. So it's that bad where I'm not even willing to say it. But yeah, the C virus or any sort of pathogen that can hang out in the lungs. A lot of people have ongoing infections in the lungs and they have no idea. It is so common you wouldn't even believe it. So now any of this data, if we were looking at my one of these lobes or something like that, and we said, oh, look at that value of the right lobe, superior lobe, how might that be connected to some of my things on my vital scan, right? How might it be connected to some of the bacteria or the fungus or something that I found there? Is there an emotional component that's most relevant for the right lobe that's also interconnected? So it takes a little bit to explain, but the way the algorithms are set up on the back, you can do a lot of cross correlations and referencing. So you can actually see values that belong together, that are interconnected. the body is completely interconnected with the way it sends signals and information and communication. So basically, that's kind of what this technology is tapping into. So as cool as the scan is right now, as helpful as this is, all I'm saying to you is, once again, it gets better. It gets better when you get into the pro level. You can do much, even more deeper diving. Like, you might have heard, for example, that if somebody carries around a lot of grief, for example, it can affect the lungs. Or if somebody is eating a lot of foods that are backing up the colon, it can affect the lungs. Like, we know this from Chinese medicine, Ayurveda. Like, how does that reference to AOScan? Believe it or not, we are in perfect alignment with those fields, in terms of finding and proving a lot of what they know in those fields. So really incredible. This is the Cepheid subtle energy frequency imprinter. There's a lot to this. It's kind of like multiple devices, multiple capabilities in one. Like, for example, if you clicked on quantum frequency and you said, like, yeah, like, I need some antiseptic medicine frequencies right now, herbal frequencies. A lot of these are from Rife sort of information. So I have a lot of back pain right now, let's say. As an example, I can click on that. I can hit play. So you're getting a very unique sound that can come through the vibroacoustic bone conduction headphones. I can also back up. I can actually make an imprint. I can make an imprint of that actual remedy for that specific back pain condition. There's so much you can do with this. I'm not going to dive too much into it, but I could, for example, take those frequencies and I could imbue it into a topical lotion, and I could rub that on my lower back, turning that lotion into a topical type of homeopathic that brings those frequencies to reduce the back pain. If you want to get into, like, how does that do that, the science, believe me, it's there. I'm not going to explain it on the video because a lot of people still wouldn't understand it, and it requires a much longer presentation, because there's a lot of terms, like physics terms and things like that, yeah, it just takes time. Okay, so we can stop that. We can also make homeopathic remedies with sugar pills, and we sell those right on the website. So if you want to get into selling remedies, we have a lot of companies, practitioners that make a good amount of income actually making remedies. They could make a Bach flower remedy, for example. If you scroll down and you see the quantum flower section here, those have different flower-based homeopathics. And just FYI, homeopathy in general, if you kind of want to if you want more research on it, you're like, yeah, I've heard of homeopathy. I'm not sure if I really understand it, or I'm a little skeptical just because I don't understand. I haven't really heard enough about it. I can send you a lot of information going back 100, 200 years, literally. Believe it or not, mainstream medicine, as it stands today, it actually really had more its roots in homeopathic researchers, doctors, practitioners, and we actually could have historically gone more that direction, especially in the United States, United Kingdom, things like that. We could have gone more that direction. It's a fascinating history, and the question is why we didn't, and it's a little controversial. So that's a whole fascinating history. This device is capable of taking any other sort of remedy. So if, let's say, you bought a homeopathic and it's really expensive, you can basically make a copy. So on the bottom screen and top screen, you just have to put both bottles, the one that you're copying into, the one you're copying from, and you can actually do that. What you don't see here on this screen is in the pro level, if you're a practitioner, we have a list of 1,900 drugs and medicines. We have the analog frequency pattern equivalents done by this brilliant researcher in Italy. And my God, they work. We've been using them for years, and we've been able to get people off of their, I should be careful how I say this, when they talk to their doctor and they let them know what they're doing, some of these people have been able to, with their doctor, reduce their medications or get off of them. And that way they don't have to deal with the side effects because they're doing a homeopathic version. There's also some aspects to homeopathy where you can actually help the body detox or release some of the side effects that came from drugs by going a homeopathic route. So like if you used to smoke a lot of marijuana, some of that stuff is hard to leave the body. but you can actually do it with homeopathy, a version of it. So that's fascinating. So we actually have tons of drug medicine equivalents, which is a great path to help a person start to go the more natural direction. And then down here we have our own homeopathic line we sell in the store, where you can, if you also want to sell that, you can. Down here on the, there's also a section here, and you'll love this one, where you can basically do, once again, a scan of your supplements. So if you had, 20 different supplements, or maybe you're somebody who works for a supplement company or herbal company, you can scan all of them, and then you can actually do a scan, another scan, a diagnostic scan of your customer, your client, or for yourself, and you can figure out, based on the analysis, it can tell you which supplement, which medicine, whatever is actually what you need right now, today, this minute, this hour. Now that is extremely helpful because it's looking at all those parameters that you just saw from the other scans. Just think about that's about, just so you know, and this is growing, but it's about 550 different aspects, segments to the body that it's looking at. That's a lot of testing. And then it's saying, hey, based off all that testing today, you should really focus on these specific supplements that you own, or maybe you should consider buying these supplements from this company in order to work on those things. So you can do that. We can actually, there's a couple ways that you can scan it yourself. Potentially, we also will open up an even more in-depth way of scanning and entering in and inputting those products. So if you're a person that has a bunch of products and you want it professionally entered in here, we might be able to work out a deal with you. For your customers to be able to use this technology. And there's a lot of possibilities with it, obviously. So that's great. There's a lot of people taking supplements they do not need. They're taking supplements that are unhealthy for them or having side effects or don't combine well with other things. So it's not just drugs that can combine and have bad side effects. And I would actually make another comment on that. In the mainstream medical world, just because something is, say, tested or double-blind tested or whatever, and that's already a whole debate about clinical studies, some of the how it doesn't always appear to be quite what it is. But the other thing that they almost never study is contraindications with other medications. So what I'm saying is there's potentially a way here where you can cross-reference and see if there's an interaction of elements that may be bad for you. Okay, so that's the challenge with practitioners. There's a lot of info they don't know, so they just try their best to not harm the person. Some people would debate me on that point that some don't care and they don't follow the Hippocrates oath, but that's beyond the scope of the video. So I think this is really important. This aspect to the Cepheid here is doing the analysis to really hone in on what you don't need to take, what you do need to take, without having to do a bunch of expensive testing. Because remember, day to day, your whole metabolic profile is always changing. Your body is always changing. So you just go with your guidance, you know what I mean? And if you don't have a lot of internal intuition and you haven't developed, your own way of testing yourself, which takes some time, this technology can help you with that. So is there anything else I wanted to share here? We do have some new sections that will be coming over the next couple months. And if you get the pro level subscription for $199, that gives you unlimited updates. So if there's anything that comes out, 6 months from now, you'll get it. Okay, you'll automatically get it uploaded. The next time that you log into your device, you just immediately download it and it's included, which is great. And I think that's a great deal. Considering everything you're getting that normally is extremely expensive with the original system, and for unlimited updates, I think it's a great deal for the subscription. So if anybody was wondering about what the erase button is, by the way, if you're making a remedy or you're imprinting all of these frequencies you need into like the little necklace, you'll see that on the store page. There's necklace, bracelet, some other things that you can wear made out of special materials that hold imprinting of frequencies really well. I'm wearing it right now. Sometimes these different objects or water or something you're about to eat even, you can actually clear it with the erase button. And that's a lot to explain. But if you're familiar with some technologies out there that have like two metal plates, it's like an extra piece of hardware, like the original system even had. They found a way to actually incorporate what was external hardware into the actual display of the device. And that we will have a video on in the near future that actually will actually use layman's terms and try to break that down in a way that still respects, obviously, the proprietary information, but how we were able to accomplish that. So, in other words, with some of these technologies, sometimes there's a lot of additional hardware attachments that get plugged into your main device. We have tried to incorporate as much as that as possible into these mobile technologies. And to be honest, mobile technologies are very advanced. Okay, this phone-like mobile device, for example, I mean, there is military grade tech in here. People don't realize that was given to the public to use. And I could probably talk for an hour on that, the pros and cons for our species. But basically, it's very sophisticated, is what I'm trying to say. Inside the internal components, it's capable of things that you would not even believe, or you would even want to know. Some of you will definitely want to know. If you ever want to have that conversation with me, just reach out. But in other words, there's plenty in here so that we can absolutely leverage the full capabilities of these types of healing technologies and leverage the full capabilities of all of the knowledge in the energy medicine field that has been accumulated over the last 100 to 200 years, depending on kind of how you're measuring technology, that term, and the research that's been done in kind of the energy field of the body. So that's it for now. I know it ended up being a little bit of a lengthy video, but this, gave you at least, I think, a good enough understanding of some of what this device is capable of. And please look below in the description of this video, and you'll see the sign up link where you can actually join. There is a business side to this business, the AOScan Mobile. Made by Energy Development. So if you do want to get into actually selling this technology or promoting it, we do have really good ways where you can be compensated on multiple levels. So if somebody refers, if you refer somebody and they also sign up and refer other people, you can get paid for that as well. Part of the reason we went with a structure like that, just so you know, we thought about going with a traditional business model, just having like sales reps, out in the field, that type of thing. The reason we did that is because we know that when you have that sort of affiliate marketing structure, it really helps spread a technology to the largest amount of people. Our goal is being so generous with giving this amazing technology over to the masses. And so that's what we want to do. We want everybody to know about it. And really, without spending millions of dollars on marketing, then pretty much the next best way is to have everybody incentivized to share it with others, right? Let's be honest. Just because you find something that works and you love it, not everybody shares what they're doing with other people. But if you're incentivized, it can be a win-win, especially with this terrible economic situation we're in. You might as well make an income, by actually helping people with their health. They can test it, they can try it. If you ever want to cancel the subscription, there's no penalty to doing so, and there's no problem with starting at any time. But if you do work the business and you're starting to make a really nice income every month because of people that are paying for the subscription under you, just a little side note, and we have another video that goes into the business side of this. But basically, the key is to make sure that your subscription is active if you want to keep on receiving income and checks from people that are below you. So that is one aspect to it. But in general, just as a regular consumer, you could always start the subscription whenever you want, and that is important if you want to use the program. Okay, to have access to it, I should be clear. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put them below in the YouTube description. And you're also welcome to call the number as well down below in the description. And you're welcome to share this video as well. If you think there's other people that would be interested in learning more about this, um, or a lot of people, or companies, again, just reach out to me and say, hey, I got these people and I think it's great, but could you help me talk to them? We can always do a webinar with all these people. We can do a conference call. If you're the type of individual that has big contacts, like companies, organizations, situations where there's like 5,000 or more types of people, customers, clients, patients, whatever it is that you think could benefit from this, definitely get with me. There's a very special program that we have in place that I've never seen ever, that a company has ever done, in terms of how that can be a win-win. And we'll just leave it at that. Anyways, thanks for watching, and look forward to connecting with you. Thanks.